What is going on with U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland? There's some indications that Garland has decided the DOJ should defend some actions of President Trump and the Trump administration. Here to talk about that is John Bonifaz. He is the co-founder and president of Free Speech for People. They are a legal advocacy organization. John, good of you to join us. So what do you make of what Attorney General Merrick Garland is up to?
Well, I think it's quite concerning. Thank you for having me, David. We issued a letter to Merrick Garland just as he became Attorney General back in February on behalf of a broad coalition of public interest organizations, urging that he immediately establish, upon his confirmation, a task force at the Department of Justice to investigate Donald Trump and all of his associates for all federal crimes they may have committed. We've not received any response to that letter. We detailed all of those areas that we thought deserved further investigation for potential federal crimes. But even beyond that, as you highlighted, the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland's leadership has taken positions that are effectively continuing the Barr Justice Department positions. In the E. Jean Carroll case, it's continuing to argue that the president, then President Donald Trump, was acting in his official capacity when he made accusations against E. Jean Carroll when she made the allegations of the alleged rape that occurred some years ago, and he acted as if this never occurred, but then hurled insults her way, and they want to argue that's presidential in terms of his actions, and therefore he's immune from being sued in state court on this in New York, and then the issue is around the Barr memorandum that was issued, deliberated on with respect to how to describe the Mueller report when it was coming out. And this is very important because, of course, if Bill Barr was trying to effectively cover up for the president, act as his political lackey, the public has a right to know that. And in a case in which an organization is trying to access that document underlying what Barr put out, the Justice Department under Merrick Garland now is working to keep it hidden. So this is very serious and concerning in terms of what it means for protecting our democracy and protecting the basic principles of the rule of law, including that no one is above the law, not even a former president of the United States.
Yeah, a lot of people in this democracy seem to agree. At last I checked, the petition has gotten over 200,000 signatures. Is there precedent for a petition triggering a government agency like the Department of Justice to essentially appoint the equivalent of an independent counsel or an independent investigator?
There absolutely is precedent for demands that the Justice Department follow the rule of law and in fact engage in crucial investigations that need to happen when you have high government officials not following the law and defying it. But I think it also has to be said that we dealt with unprecedented matters under the Trump administration, matters in which this president, the former president, so trampled on the Constitution and the rule of law, acted like he was above the rule of law, that it is a presidency on its own that needs that kind of scrutiny, unlike any other. It was the most corrupt presidency of our history. And so in light of all that, and in light of the fact that President Biden himself said he wasn't going to interfere with the Justice Department and was going to let the Justice Department do its job wherever those chips would fall, then that means that this independent task force is needed all the more, because it would demonstrate that Merrick Garland is creating independence from political considerations, is carrying out these investigations with leaving no stones unturned. And that's crucial to the public trust in the rule of law. I'll give you one example, just among many others, is the Department of Justice decision under Bill Barr to close the investigation at the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York with respect to the campaign finance violations that Michael Cohen and Individual One, whom everyone knows is the former president, Donald Trump, engaged in conspiring to commit prior to the 2016 election to make those hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Michael Cohen, of course, went to federal prison as a result of those investigations, was indicted, but Individual One was not named or indicted, and yet the Barr Justice Department shut it down. And the question is, why has the Garland Justice Department not reopened that investigation? Why?
Could it be because the New York Attorney General has joined forces with the Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance, and those are the very issues that they're looking at. And there's every indication Vance has impaneled a grand jury that they are considering indicting Donald Trump and some of his associates for matters arising from what happened in the Southern District of New York.
So I think that's a critical question, and I do agree that the state investigation should proceed, but that should not mean that the federal investigations essentially get closed off. If there are federal crimes as well as state crimes, then the former president needs to be held accountable for all of them, not just under state law. And what's happened here, unfortunately, is there has been a lot of attention placed on the Manhattan DA's investigation and on the New York Attorney General's investigation, and very little focus on what is the Department of Justice doing about these potential federal crimes the former president committed.
What seems to be coming out of Merrick Garland and some of his associates is that the Department of Justice, their priority, at least in some of these decisions, is to not necessarily focus on the corruption. And I think a lot of them, from what I've heard personally, agree that Trump was the most corrupt president ever. But their priority, at least now, seems to be protecting the erosion of presidential power. And they fear that some of these cases might chip away at the executive authority. Is that a solid argument?
It's not a solid argument with respect to the examples they've provided. I mean, the idea that they're going to intervene and try to stop E. Jean Carroll from having her day in court for the alleged rape allegations based on in terms of her defamation case against the president, based on the idea that what the president was doing was in his office as president in responding to that defamation or those allegations underlying the defamation case is outrageous. I mean, the fact is that the president wasn't doing that. Donald Trump was doing that in his personal capacity. So this isn't a presidential power consideration. But I'll add one other point on this, which is beyond the corruption concerns, there's the actual concerns we saw on January 6th with the president inciting a violent insurrection at the US Capitol. And those are federal offenses. Engaging in sedition, engaging in insurrection, those are federal crimes. And the idea that this is solely going to be a commission, which hasn't, of course, been voted upon by Congress and received majority support from the standpoint of the filibuster being the blockade to it. But the idea that now this is simply going to be a congressional investigation and no federal crimes that may have been committed with respect to the insurrection, the former president would be resulting in DOJ accountability is very concerning. The president must be held accountable to the law, not just to an investigation by the media or by members of Congress.
Yeah, that select committee that the Democrats apparently are putting together, it will still have some subpoena power. And in fact, there is an ability to, I suppose, prosecute somebody within the US Justice Department if somebody lies to that congressional panel. But I think there are a lot of people that would agree that there should at least be some sort of independent counsel, independent prosecutor for all the events that transpired around January 6th. What do you think is holding back Merrick Garland and the Justice Department in pursuing that?
David, I fear that what's holding them back is the notion that they want to turn the page on this era under Donald Trump, that they do not want to have an indictment of the former president cloud the agenda of the Biden administration. The problem with that fear is that in effect sets us up for an even worse situation down the road of another person, whether it's Donald Trump or someone else coming into office who can engage in even more reckless and lawless behavior as this former president did. And it sets a very dangerous precedent going forward that in fact, people can be above the law, especially if they occupy the Oval Office.
There has been this argument, and I would agree that President Trump essentially politicized the Department of Justice, an agency that has traditionally been independent. But there's also the argument the other way that if Merrick Garland were to respond to public political pressure, he would be politicizing it as well. Is there a middle ground? Is there a way for Merrick Garland to do as you would like, but without seeming to undermine the confidence that a lot of people want to have in the Justice Department as a neutral arbiter?
Well, I want to be clear that this letter that we issued on behalf of a coalition of organizations was not demanding the prosecution of Donald Trump. It was demanding that the Justice Department start this task force to conduct all investigations as necessary on potential federal crimes that the former president may have committed. There's nothing political about that. This is about upholding the rule of law and upholding the integrity of the Justice Department itself. And that's what's at stake here. And if there are no investigations, if we're just gonna go ahead and say we're turning the page and never holding this president accountable, then what we're really doing is saying that he is above the law and we're undermining the basic trust that people put in the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And I also think there is this idea of precedent that maybe the Justice Department, people in the future Justice Department will look back and say, aha, well, this is what we can get, this is what they were able to get away with in the Trump administration. So why not have a rogue attorney general? What's the problem? In any case, John Bonifaz, co-founder and president of Free Speech for People, a legal advocacy organization. John, good of you to join us. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
David, thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.